Let's see. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Let me just get this stuff situated and turn off the waiting room so I don't have to keep. Oh, no, I can't turn it off. That's no good. Okay, please mute yourself. Hello. Welcome when you come everyone. In. Let me just get this stuff situated. Okay. I forgot I had the live stream up and I'm like hearing myself and I'm asking you guys to mute. So anywho, this is a live Q&A kind of like webinar style. So you don't have to have your cameras on. Not going to ask anyone to unmute. I am live streaming to YouTube. I learned that StreamYard doesn't actually broadcast into Facebook groups anymore. So I am sharing the YouTube live right now within the group. But you all who are on the Zoom call, obviously you don't need to be in the Facebook group, but I do want to make sure that other people are aware of it. So I'm doing that, going live now for Q&A. It's always a lot to like start the lives and everything. Make sure they're shared in the right place before we get started, but that hopefully gives y'all time to let me know in the chat if you can hear me and where you're tuning in from, and you can start asking questions. So I'm going to post that in the Facebook group and then go back over to YouTube and make sure there's no questions coming in. Close that. All right, cool. So welcome to our first live monthly Q&A for the Ambitious Bookkeeper. Hello from Michigan. Awesome. And yeah, what these are basically just a space for you to ask any question related to building your business, working with clients, questions you have about how I run things. I'm an open book, so this is your opportunity to literally ask me anything about business. And I'm here to serve you guys and answer your questions. And then the recording will be on YouTube after this. If you are a student of mine in the Bookkeeping Business Accelerator, you'll also have the recording loaded into your portal to watch later as well. So hello from Maryland, just tuning in. Kennethy from Nairobi. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you all for showing up. I am ready to receive your questions. Before we get into, as you guys are typing in your questions, little announcements. This is the first monthly live Q&A. They will continue at this time, at least through the time change. I may end up bumping them back a little bit to later in the morning once the time changes because I'm in Arizona. And if I keep it at this exact time, it'll be really early for me and dealing with kids dropping off at school and all that good stuff. So this is when our monthly live Q&A will be until March or whenever the time changes. Maybe it's April this year. And then if you are curious about my programs, the Bookkeeping Business Accelerator, I normally run that in cohorts for VIP. And for this year, at least for the first half of the year, I'm not going to be running any cohorts, but I am opening up VIP to be able to drop in. And we have monthly hot seats and monthly co-working. So you'll be getting emails about that in the near future. And yeah, that way there's an additional way to support you within that program. The self-paced version is always available for anytime you want to hop into that. But if you are already in self-paced or you've been waiting for a VIP cohort, that's the deal with that. We're going to be just keeping things monthly and not running it in a weekly cohort like we had been last fall. I may end up doing another cohort later in the year, but right now I have lots of life stuff going on. I bought a house and I'll be moving soon. And so promoting a cohort of BBA just wasn't really going to work out in the first quarter of this year. So yeah. All right. So what questions do you guys have? Again, it can be about anything, best practices, mindset, pricing, getting clients, all of the above. Yeah, just drop them in the chat and I will answer them as they come. Giselle says, I'd love to know your best practices for hiring trustworthy people and ensuring they're handling client data securely. Ooh, I love this one. Okay. So, first and foremost, the hiring the right people begins with actually figuring out what values you want your employees to hold, and that usually would match your own values. So, it's some work that you have to do initially up front to really decide like what are my values and what do I want to make sure my employees are congruent in. So, for example, and you might not get this clarity until you've had a hire that didn't work out. But that's the beauty of using those experiences. So, for example, at one point, I had an employee that had a difficult time communicating when they were behind on things, and then things would slip through the cracks, and then we weren't serving our clients the best way that I wanted to. And so that gave me the clarity to add the value of communication and integrity, right? So you can look at situations if you have hired before and how it didn't work out and really reflect on like what are the things that really didn't work and how can I flip that to the opposite to get what I really want. Another thing that is really, really crucial for at least my team, and I would venture to guess most bookkeeping firms, you need people that are problem solvers because you don't want people coming to you asking you every little question. You want them to be able to go in and figure out as much as possible. So problem solving is one of our values. Communication is another one. And I'm very upfront with my team. It's like, it's not that I don't care if you can't get it done, but like I would rather just know before it gets too late when things end up slipping through the cracks. So if you're having trouble meeting deadlines, just communicate so we can redisperse the work. I can jump in and help. And so that one's a really important one to me too. And then also communicating with our clients is really important. So we kind of drill those values in during the interview process and during onboarding client or onboarding team. Um, so another really important value for this type line of work is attention to detail. So I would say attention to detail, problem solver, and communication are our top values. We have others too, but I think those ones kind of cover like would be great for you to start with as well. So make sure your hiring process starts with identifying the values that are really important for you, and then you design your interview process around asking questions that are going to bring out answers that show you what types, like how people are going to handle certain things like that. So you can give them a scenario where, um, like I just explained to you. So you would say like during the interview process, so like what would you do if like you were behind on like a bunch of clients and then I gave you more work to put on top? How would you handle that? And some people might just be like, I would just buckle down and do it. Or some people will, you know, be maybe be more honest and be like, well, I'd probably like have to come back to you and ask you which ones to prioritize or whatever. And then some people, what you really want to know is if people are going to actually communicate to you that they feel overloaded with client work or whatever, right? So you'll design questions throughout the interview process. Like this is not an easy like snap of a finger like, oh, this is how you find trustworthy people. Like it's going to take work and effort on your part on the front end, but it is absolutely worth it. So then once you get through that like interview phase, and there's things that we do throughout the interview process and application process that also show us people's attention to detail. Once you get through that phase, when you actually are onboarding someone, you need to do a background check. And you can make their employment contingent upon that background check. And that's one of the reasons why like I don't actually hire subcontractors anymore. I do employees because I want to have more control over the process. And I guess you could probably do a background check on a contractor if they agreed to it. But yeah, I do background checks on everyone because you want to make sure that people don't have any issues with fraud or anything in their background. Um, and then just continuing to keep the communication lines open as they're working with you and helping, making sure they understand. Like one of the things that we do is we have a weekly team meeting. We have it after this call, actually. And every week I ask people like where things are at, if they need support from me, like where, what are they waiting on for me and what are we waiting on from clients? Do they need to escalate anything to me to communicate so that clients start moving things along? And so they know that that this is the space that's always available for them to tell me like what they need my support in. But also I have like an open Slack policy as well. Like we don't have doors, no offices. Um, they can message me anytime and have those conversations as well. And I do little side check-ins with my employees as well throughout the week and throughout the month outside of the team meetings in case there's something that people don't feel comfortable bringing up in front of everyone else. So one-on-ones, I do those with my team once a month at this point. When I first hire somebody, I do a one-on-one with a new employee every week to check in with them. And then I scale it back to every couple weeks once they're, pretty well on board and doing well and don't need as much support. And then we scale back to monthly. So all of these things are really important in getting team that you can trust because having those one-on-ones and meetings and training opportunities are going to build your trust for them and make you like understand that, okay, they do know what they're doing and I can like relinquish more control. And it's going to build their trust with you as well, knowing that they can come to you for anything. So, um, when we start to hire, like our time of doing the work actually just shifts to mentoring our team. So, if that's something that maybe you need support in, or you're not sure if you can handle it. My good friend Alyssa Lang, the workflow queen, has a program called Breakthrough where she goes through all of these processes and helps coach you through the leadership type of stuff that I'm talking about. Um, so yeah, and I believe she's going to be promoting that in the near future. So I hope that was helpful, Giselle. I was very long-winded. I'm sorry for that, but there's a lot of layers in building and hiring a trustworthy team. And as far as data security, that's where part of our onboarding is actually putting our team through our cybersecurity training that comes from our insurance company has a cybersecurity training. And so I put the team through that when they onboard. Honestly, it's probably something that we should revisit every year and kind of look at everything. But I have a pretty, like, I haven't had any changes in my team. And so everyone understands the processes. We don't email financials to clients, we link the Google Drive, things like that. And everyone is pretty, the hard part is like making sure your team understands phishing scams really well. So anytime you get one that you know is a scam, share it with your team and show them like if you get something like this, don't click on the link, things like that. All right, I'm gonna take a drink. Stacy says, what are some suggestions to work on networking skills or perfecting your pitch to clients? So I would suggest actually like writing one out that feels good to you and then start verbally practicing it in front of the mirror and continue to practice it and like zhuzh it out to make sure it actually sounds like you and feels natural. Sometimes things won't feel natural until you practice them enough. And then sometimes it's like it doesn't feel natural because those aren't words that you would actually use. So make sure you're using language you would use in a regular conversation and so it doesn't feel as unnatural and then it'll be easier. But absolutely, you have to practice. So practice on your family, practice in front of the mirror, practice with friends. Be like, hey, I'm working on my elevator pitch. Can you just like listen and give me feedback or whatever? Yeah, that would be my suggestion for that. And networking skills, I honestly like the way I go into networking events is I look around the room for someone who's standing alone and I go and talk to them because I'm not the type that's really going to like go into a group of people who are already talking. I'm an introvert. I do way better in one-on-one situations. So that's my strategy. I'll find the person that's, standing alone or kind of like waiting on the side of a conversation between two other people and I'll go up to them and introduce myself. Um, and that's a really good strategy if you're also an introvert and you don't want to be like, hey, here I am, like life of the party. Um, yeah. And then Giselle had a follow-up question. Anything specific to prevent data breaches on employees' computers? Do you provide employees a computer for work? Yes, I provide my team with Mac computers. That offers a layer of security that typical PCs don't have to begin with. And then we also load McAfee antivirus on those computers. And as far as data breaches, that's where your cyber security training is going to come into play in helping your team understand what's a phishing scam and dealing like email is the most dangerous piece. So it's like the less that you actually do an email with your clients, the better, because then when some phishing scam does come in, your team will be like, we don't even email stuff like this. So yeah. Kim asked, what are your practices for advising clients to keep receipts under the $75 IRS threshold? Also, do you have a minimum transaction amount that you use to ask clients about transactions? Or do you ask for all transactions if you don't know what the transaction is for? Oh, that's a really good question. I never considered not asking them about any transaction, even if it's only $2. So if we don't know what a transaction is for, even down to 50 cents, we're going to ask what it's for. We don't obviously require receipts. So I educate the clients when they onboard with us. We say, this is the rule for the IRS. Bank statements are not enough for documentation. The IRS wants you to have documentation of all money in and money out. So that looks like if you're taking cash or check deposits, you need to document what those are for, take a picture of the check, all that kind of stuff, keep that. And then for receipts, anything over $75, I always caveat that and I recommend clients to actually also keep all meal receipts and document who and what and why that meal happened. Um, and I let them know we provide you with the tool. We use Hubdoc. We provide you with this tool to make it easier for you to manage your receipts, but we're not going to chase after them. And I'm very clear on that. And so it really, because the onus is on the business owner to keep their records, not us. We are just providing them a service of like, here's the tool that you can use. It'll make things easier all around if you use it, because then we'll have less questions if you upload all your receipts, but we're not requiring you to do it. However, we are going to ask you what transactions are for, so we categorize them correctly if it's not easy to find on Google or, from our own knowledge for what that vendor is. So that's how we handle that. And I would say like a third of our clients actually use Hubdoc on a very regular basis and are really good about it. And the rest of them don't really use it. And we have to ask them more questions. So Michael asked, how is Notion working for you? What's your main use for it? And do you see it replacing another software you are using? Yeah, so I love Notion. We are using it for pretty much all of our project management on the Ambitious Bookkeeper side. So all of our launches, all of the podcast content, and all of that. We also use it to document our team meetings. We have a team meeting document that we copy every week, and throughout the week, everyone can like add their notes to it of things they want to talk about in the meeting. We use it, basically, we replaced Google Docs with it. So every SOP is in Notion. Anything that we would have created a Google Doc for, we now do in Notion, and we've put things into databases to organize them easier. And I do have a team member that's building out our client work projects in Notion to possibly be getting rid of Asana in the future. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I love Notion. If you want to learn more about Notion, that's again the place to go would be Alyssa, the workflow queen. She has templates and everything inside of Breakthrough for that. And so that's where I initially learned how to build it out. And we've created kind of our own way of using it from that. So we've adapted that, and it's working really well for us. So yeah. Just want to make sure I don't have my, okay. I earlier had my volume on the YouTube stream over on this other screen and was like echoing. And so I muted my entire computer, but in case anyone does unmute, I wouldn't hear you. So I just wanted to make sure that I had that all situated. Thanks. I've been using it, but wasn't positive how it would scale as I grow. Seems like a good sign. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great, I think Notion's a great thing to use, especially to scale because Google Docs can become quite disorganized and crazy. And Notion, you can search words within a document, which you can't. I don't think you can do that in Google Drive. Like, I don't think you'll be able to pull up a document by searching content inside of it. So that's where it becomes easier to find the things that you're looking for. And then also you can organize things into databases and cross-reference stuff, and it's really cool. Yeah. Do you use Fathom? Is it worth the steep price? I do not use Fathom. Um, since all of our clients are on Zero, we use the canned package reporting that comes in Zero. We've modified it some, but since we're able to create a reporting package that we can push down to every client, that has worked for us this far. I do have one of my team, my account manager is looking into looking into options for doing more of a dashboard type reporting package for our clients this year. So I think Fathom is on the list of what he's looking at, but stay tuned. I'll let you know what we decide when we do. Um, so if you are working with clients in QBO, I would definitely recommend using something like Fathom or outside of QBO because their reporting is pretty limited. Um, and it's just like gruesome to like try to format it every month the way you want it. So anytime you can eliminate that work, Fathom might be worth the price when you calculate how much time it's taking you to run financial statements, export them to Excel, reformat them, do graphs, whatever you're doing, like figure out that ROI and see if it is actually worth it. Kelvin says, hi from Florida. I've been playing around with LivePlan and I'm wondering to what extent we can use that tool to implement your approach, such as the three budgets, baseline, downside, and stretch. They seem to call budgets forecasts. Yeah. So sometimes people interchange budget and forecast. I personally consider the budget is the thing that you do at the beginning or end of the year for the full year, right? So this is what we're planning for 2025. This is our budget. This is going to be the original budget. And then we might do three versions of that budget, which you just talked about, the baseline, the downside, and the stretch. This is all terminology that's inside of my Elevate program. So we do three versions of a budget, not for all clients. Not all clients need this, but depending on their industry and what the market's doing, sometimes you want to have three versions to just like play out scenarios of like, what if this happens versus what if this happens. So I call like the full year plan the budget. And then when we meet back quarterly, if you're in a CFO engagement, um, that's when we reforecast the rest of the year. So we pull in actuals from Q1 and then reforecast the rest of the year based on what happened on Q1. Like if we were really far off from our budget, we're going to say, okay, we're going to change this, this, and this because we know now that this year it's going more like this. So that's what I consider a forecast. But their software, they're going to call everything a forecast and it's pretty interchangeable. So yeah, so you can absolutely use LivePlan and do those three scenarios. What I would do is start with your baseline, build that budget out, and then duplicate that budget and rename it and call it the downside or whatever, version two or, scenario two or whatever you really want to do. Sometimes it's helpful to rename that scenario based on like what's the biggest driver of the change. So our baseline budget would be like our the minimum that we want to do in sales. The downside budget would be like if sales go down, and then the stretch budget is if we blow our baseline budget out of the water and we have all this extra revenue, what else would we be doing with our operating expenses? So yeah, you can absolutely use LivePlan um, to to do that as well pretty easily. I'm just joining, so apologies if any similar questions were already asked, but I have my first cleanup client prospect. Yay. It's a great time of year for that. She needs a few years cleaned up. What is the best way to get historical transactions into QBO? I know I can connect the bank feeds, but I wasn't sure it pulls historical transactions. So it sounds actually like a catch-up than a cleanup if you're trying to get the transactions into QBO. So in that case, yeah, if it's prior years, you're probably not even going to be able to connect bank feeds that far back. Usually they only go back like maybe 6 months, depending on the bank. So you're going to have to get access. My recommendation in situations like this is to just get access to their bank accounts so that you can download the Excel files and PDFs and everything that you need and research transactions and then upload, and then you're going to upload them into QBO. Um, Same goes for Zero. That's how we would do the process in Zero as well. I'm not exactly sure where on the screen it is in QBO anymore, but there is a place to upload a CSV, and you may have to make sure it's formatted the way they want before you uploaded it, but there should be a template in there when you go to upload. So that's what I would do for a catch up. Now, if it's a cleanup, that means the transactions are already in there and they're already maybe categorized, or maybe they're sitting in uncategorized and need to be accepted. But it sounds more like you're doing a catch up, which is honestly the best. It's way easier because you're not cleaning up someone else's mess. You're just going back in time further and adding those transactions and starting fresh. But correct me if I'm wrong. Um, how do you back up all of your data, your client data, and the apps you use? All right. So since all of our clients are on Zero, we use a service that works with Zero. It's called Export My Data. And we link new clients to that as we onboard them. So all of our clients' data is backed up on a weekly basis. And I can go into my portal and export my data at any time and download the files if I were to need them. So that's how we back up the client data. As far as the apps that we use, um, I'm not I'm not really backing up any data on any of the other apps we use because it's mostly like, I guess Notion, that would be really unfortunate if we lost it all. So maybe I should think about that. Um, but yeah, the client data, we absolutely pay for a service to back it up. It's like $10 per client. So as your client base grows, that price, increases. But in QBO, you can use something like rewind.io. There's other services as well. But I definitely recommend, like, if you are doing this type of service for your clients where you're backing up their data, talk about it because that's an added value. And so we added that to our like scope of work of like, and we back up your data and to give you peace of mind that if anything happens to Zero, like we still have all the information and we could recreate it if we needed to. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. But yeah, now you got me thinking about like backing up Notion. I do have a process. I did have a process for a while where in Asana, we that's where we put our like status updates on clients. So when we do a month end handoff, when the bookkeeper hands off the month end, and then at the month end, when my account manager reviews everything and sends the clients the financials, those statuses with all the notes, um, we were printing those to PDF like every quarter just to have them in the client file. I probably need to make sure we're still doing that. And then, but also like we have everything, like we export financials into Google Drive as well. So we have multiple copies of that and then we share it with our client. So um, things could be recreated. We could figure out where things are pretty easily, but yeah, it's always something good to think about. All right, we got about 15 more minutes left, so go ahead and ask your questions. And if there are no questions, then we'll end early, but I want to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. And let me know too in the chat, like how everyone's January is going. Is everyone like knee deep in 1099s? Are you feeling good about that? Are you ahead of the game? Are you like, what are 1099s? Give me an update. And then I would love to hear like how many leads people are getting right now. This is like the busiest time of year when people start coming out of the woodworks like, hey, I know we talked last year, but now I'm ready because I didn't do anything since we talked. So this is usually a really good time to like be available and be on the platforms where your potential clients are going to be so that they know that you're available if you need work. What do the co-working sessions look like? So co-working is an hour and a half. I do a Zoom call. I put on some focus music and I use a Pomodoro timer, which is 25 minutes. And so we do 3 rounds of 25-minute sprints. And that's just focus time where we are muted. You can turn your cameras off or on. It doesn't really matter. The timer's going, the music is going, and I'm available in the chat if you're working on something and you have some questions. And then when the 25 minutes is up, we stand up, we stretch, we like unmute and chit chat if you want, and then we get back to work after the 5-minute rest back into focused work. So I find that a really good way to be productive and get more done when you have like a window of time. So I always ask everyone to like commit to what you are working on this first sprint. And then I do that throughout the co-working as well. Um, and it's like a fun game to be like, okay, during this sprint, I'm gonna like finish doing these financials for a client or whatever. So yeah, that's what the co-working looks like. And those do not get recorded. Um, because there's nothing really to record. Let's see. How often do you do these Q&As? I received an email from you, and that's how I knew to join, but I would love to plan to join in the future. Again, yes, every month, same time, same place. It's also broadcast to YouTube. So if you miss it, you can go back and watch the replay. So Q&As are the third Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific until the time changes, and then I'll probably move it back an hour or something. I'm not sure yet. So you can count on these Q&As. I used to do them live in the Facebook group. Now StreamYard doesn't broadcast into groups, and so I decided to move it to Zoom and just put the replay on YouTube for everyone. Um, so yeah, hopefully I get to see you next time. And we do try to send out reminder emails, but now you guys know the dates and you can put them on your calendar. Third Thursdays at 8 a.m. Pacific. Michelle says, can you tell us what is included in the Confidence Compliance Bundle? Yes. So I have the 1099 toolkit, which includes a 1099 training, email templates that we use to collect information from clients and follow up with them about 1099s. And then I have a sales tax toolkit, which I have a sales tax training in there. I give you my standard operating procedures on how to do a sales tax nexus analysis in Shopify um, for Shopify clients, but you can also use that same process for any type of platform wherever they're selling to figure out what their nexus is. The concepts are the same. And I also give you standard operating procedures on 1099s. And then the third piece of that toolkit is a year-end toolkit. I give you our exact process and template for our year-end tax package that we give to clients to give to their tax pros. So I don't do taxes, but we hand off a pretty little package to our clients for their tax professionals at the end of the year. So I walk you through how to set that up and what information to include in that. And then also we do a year-end Canva presentation, a visual of our clients' performance for the year. And I give you that template and a walkthrough on how to present that as well, whether you're doing it on a Zoom or a Loom video. Most of our clients, we just send them in a Loom. And so you get all of those templates as well. So it's pretty sweet. It's only available through the end of this month. The rest of the year, I don't really sell it. Um, so yeah, if you are interested in that, get on it before the end of this month. And Kelsey says, I would love to know how you price your cleanups and how you collect payments. Do you collect 50% up front and 50% at the end? I do a paid diagnostic review and use that to estimate how long the cleanup will take, but I still find that I'm struggling with underpricing them. Any suggestions? Yeah, so there's been times when um, if it's a complex cleanup and I'm really not sure how long it's going to take and what else I'm going to uncover, sometimes I just get a hunch that I'm like, if there's a lot of loans, if there's fixed assets, if there's sales tax, if there's um, payroll, if there's all of those things, then it's likely to, and AR, like it's likely to be a way bigger cleanup. And so in instances like that, I actually quote them hourly and I'll do like a retainer. So I'll say, my hourly rate for cleanup of this complexity is $150 or whatever you decide. But I'm going to have you pay a retainer upfront for 10 hours or 20 hours because I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to take. And then I try to estimate that retainer on like getting close to how long I think it'll take, but it still gives me the flexibility of being able to add to it to say like, hey, I'm getting near the end of the retainer. I still probably have another 10 hours of work to do. And so you can request another lump sum or just let them know you'll bill it at the end. That's my recommendation for really complex cleanups. For cleanups that are really simple, for example, I just did a paid diagnostic for someone who has a pretty simple business model, and we're very familiar with her business model, um and she doesn't have like a ton of bank accounts, she doesn't have any loans, she doesn't have any of that other stuff I was talking about. um it would probably be really cheap if I offered her a cleanup at an hourly rate, and I don't want to do that. So for her, I did do a flat rate because I wanted it to actually be worth my time to take away from like regular business. So that would be my suggestion on that. Like if you think it's going to be really simple, you can still quote them a flat rate. You don't have to quote everybody the same way because every business is different. So that's how I handle it. Like if it's going to be a really complex cleanup, I do a retainer and I bill hourly because that's yes, hourly is not ideal for billing on a monthly recurring basis, but for something like a project that you really have no idea how long it's going to take, that's your safer bet. So don't be afraid to still use hourly billing in certain situations. We also do hourly billing for anything out of scope. Um, and that's in our engagement letter. We say like anything out of the scope of this, if you want us to do anything extra, like this is our hourly rate and this is what we're going to bill you. And so it makes it easier to price things in the future. There's other things that we have priced at a flat fee a la carte, but that's different than if it's out of scope and it doesn't fall into any of those items, then it's an hourly rate. How can co-working sessions be accessed? So co-working sessions are only available to the Bookkeeping Business Accelerator VIP students. So if you're in self-paced and you want to upgrade to VIP, shoot me an email, support@ambitiousbookkeeper.com, and we will give you the links to upgrade. You also, as a VIP, you also get monthly hot seat calls, which are coaching calls basically, and they're on Zoom. We have cameras on, we unmute, we talk back and forth, and we work through specific problems that you want to be coached through in a group setting. They're usually really small groups, I'll say that, and because it makes a difference sometimes in people making a decision. I personally don't like being on a Zoom call with 100 people because then I'm afraid to like say anything. I don't really like ask my questions if it's like an unmuting situation. And so if that helps, like in general, our hot seat calls, the max amount of people that come on are like 12. Um, I say this now and watch like next time it's going to be like 20 people, but they're still relatively small in the grand scheme of things. So I do try to answer every question and coach whoever needs to be coached on that call. They're generally about an hour. Yeah. Um, Cheyenne says, hi from Idaho. What is the best way to track and handle sales numbers for clients? I have a few clients that don't have POS systems, and all I've been tracking are bank deposits. Okay, so I would ask for, they don't have POS systems and you've been tracking bank deposits. So how are they getting like where are they getting their sales from? Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Because wherever they're getting their sales from, you want reports from that system. Um, if it's like an accounts receivable thing and maybe it's there's got to be a separate system that they're tracking these things if they don't have a POS. So that's a question mark for me. Like it's got to be coming from somewhere unless they're just like literally getting cash payments from people. And then while you're typing your answer, I'm going to keep answering questions. 1099 question. If a business pays for services on behalf of another business with the intent to get reimbursed, does the paying business issue a 1099 for the services? Yes. Yes, because that's the business who should have collected a W-9. It doesn't really matter what happens with it later on. Whoever is paying for the service initially is the one issuing the 1099. How do you track average cart value on your advisory in general? Can that be tracked in QBO? Um, it probably can't be tracked in QBO unless they have all their sales data feeding into QBO. So, average cart value is where you take it's like in a situation with online business, for example, I'll use that because that's the niche that I'm in. We have situations where um, and I'm sure you've run into this where you go online to buy a template. And so you're like, yes, add to cart. And then you go to the cart and it's like for just, $5, add this on, check this box. So that is an add-on or an order bump. And then you click purchase and then you get a screen that's like, just one more thing. Like, would you like this? Blah, blah, blah. And that's an upsell. So there's three opportunities to add to the cart before the purchase is absolutely complete. And so your average cart value is the total sales that happen throughout a period divided by the number of customers. So like the number of, I guess essentially you could have a customer repeat purchase, but in this instance, I'm going to assume that like each customer has one cart, they don't come back and do more. So it's like each instance of a purchase, what is the value of their cart? So you just divide the total sales over a time period divided by the number of customers, and that's your average cart value. So it's pretty simple, but you have to have that data. So I guess like if all the sales data is in QBO, you could find that average cart value. Another way in certain industries, you wouldn't call it cart value, you would call it average selling price. So it depends on what you're doing. If it's a service-based industry, you would take your total sales divided by the number of clients to get your average price per client. And that's a calculation that we do for our business as a bookkeeping business. Like we take our total sales divided by the number of clients that we had during that given period, and that's our average billing rate or whatever. So those are some key KPIs that you can track for clients that are very meaningful because if you like are working on helping your client earn more revenue, you can look at that number and say, okay, well, our average cart value last quarter was this, but this quarter it's lower. Why? What happened? What did you change? We need to go back to that. Or maybe it's increasing and you're like, okay, it's this quarter, but it was that last quarter. So why? What did you do differently? Keep doing that. Um, so those are really, really good to track. Inherited client, single member LLC, books from a CPA, and all owner draws have been categorized to a liability due to owner instead of owner draw. Are you sure it's not an S corp? It's about a 20K negative balance right now. Should I keep them there or move to owner draw? Pros and cons of this. I would make sure that it's not actually an S corp because it kind of sounds like you would only move, like instead of doing owner's draws for S corps, if it's not a distribution, you would do like a loan from shareholder situation. So I would just confirm that it's not an S corp. Otherwise, yes, I would talk to the client first though and say, "Hey, this is what is here. I don't know if you're even aware of it, but what this means is like you took draws so it says due to owner. It's a liability due to owner. So it actually sounds like if that's the case, the owner injected money into the business and they want it paid back, but it's at a negative balance. So whoever set that up was not utilizing it properly. So yeah, I would sit down with the client, ask them, I would kind of comb through those transactions with them and say, okay, what was the intent here? Are you planning on having the business pay you back? Or can we just move this to owner's draws slash owner's contributions? And I would try to split it out because there's probably some ins and outs going on in there. I would separate them out and put them in draws slash contributions. But first confirm that it's not an S corp. A potential client wanted me to do a cleanup, but wanted me to do it in person. I said, no, should I charge more if they want me to do it in person? My starting price was 1,500. Honestly, like if you don't want to do any in-person type stuff like that, you can just say no, or you can charge an exorbitant amount. If you are like, well, it would be worth it if it was this amount, you could do that. I would, for me, it would be a hard no to do an in-person cleanup because I don't want someone over my shoulder. Although it could be that they don't have the records like online and it's a desktop situation. So you do have to go in. It's really up to you. But yeah, I would charge a premium for sure because you're going to have to work with their business hours and all that kind of stuff and manage your schedule. What are the things that you go over with a client in your initial onboarding call? Do you cover that in BBA? Yes, that is in BBA. There's a checklist for you on the onboarding. It's called onboarding tech call because most of what we go over on that call is we connect bank feeds. That's number one, first and foremost, because we usually can't move any further with doing whatever with the books without those bank feeds connected. And almost never have I been able to connect bank feeds based on the login that they give us. We always need the admin login. So we set up bank feeds with them. We walk through how to use Hubdoc. We talk through and show them how to use the invoicing within Xero if they're going to be invoicing clients. We'll set up payment processors for that if that's the case, like setting up Stripe or PayPal or Go Cardless. And we'll talk through their revenue categories. So I'm a big believer on making sure their reports are meaningful for them. So we talk through their different revenue streams and how they want to see that broken out on their P&L. And if they have sales tax, we have that conversation. Yeah, there's a whole checklist in BBA for you if you're in the program. They mostly do cash. So, okay, following up from Cheyenne, they mostly do cash and check. They sell insulation, and when I have had conversations with them and asked if they want to track receivables, I never have a clear answer. So if you're not given the information, like you're doing what you can with the information you have. So I would just continue doing what you are doing until they're like, hey, we want to have more of this data. And you can continue to offer it to them and let them know like, hey, like I can show you how to um, use if you're using QBO or Xero, I can show you how to use the app on the fly. We'll set all the items up and you can be able to take other payment methods if you do this. So that could be, yeah, people are missing out on revenue if they don't take credit card. But it could be in their industry, it really hasn't made a difference. So you never know, but you could always offer it. Cheryl says definitely not an S corp. So yeah, I gave you what I would do then. I would have the conversation still with the client just to be sure there wasn't some other intent. And then I would put it in owner's draws and owner's contribution. Yeah, basically telling me they don't care if receivables are tracked. Yeah, but that's also like this is an education point. They might not care, but they might not realize what they're missing out on. So it might be a matter of they have to feel a pain point to do anything different. So you could be like, "Hey, um, since you're not tracking receivables, how do you know if someone owes you money? Like how do you know if you are due some cash that you haven't been paid yet?" And like, wouldn't you like to know if you are due some cash and like, especially if they're having cash flow issues, that would be a great time to bring that up. Like, hey, one thing that we can look at to bring more cash into the business is actually setting up receivables in QBO. I can show you how to invoice clients through the app on the fly. And you can also take other payment methods, and that's going to speed up your cash flow. And then you'll also know who owes you, and we can set up email invoice reminders to chase after them so that you don't have to do the back and forth with clients. So I would still present that as an option, especially if they're having cash flow issues, but you've got to show them why it's worth it. So yeah, you're welcome. All right, everyone, we're about at time. Thank you so much for joining me today and asking all your wonderful questions. If you have any other questions about anything that we talked about today, oh, I have one more question on YouTube. I'm going to answer that real quick. Are you still providing payroll services? What is your approach to pricing for payroll? I'm a bit hesitant on whether to offer this service, but it is for a small client. So we don't technically do the payroll for them. We do set up Gusto and we show them, we help them onboard it. We show them how to use it. We'll create a standard operating procedure on how to run payroll for them and walk them through it their first time or two if they need it. But we don't actually do payroll for any clients. So you could structure it that way. And then we manage the integration and book the entry, make sure the entries are booking properly and all that kind of stuff. So we do add a fee to our monthly clients that have payroll because that's an added step for us to reconcile all that and make sure it's all good. But we don't actually perform payroll. So I hope that makes sense. And that's absolutely an option for you. And I highly recommend doing that, in fact, because it's really hard to manage someone's payroll when you're not there in the office with them, understanding who's clocking in and who's clocking out. Someone needs to approve those timesheets, and it should not be you. It should be their manager. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Guitar playing, Ken. I play guitar too. As you see, I have a ukulele behind me and a guitar down there and more guitars all over the house. So you're in good company here. All right. So thank you all so much. What I was going to say, if you have any further questions about anything I talked about today, like upgrading to VIP or maybe joining the Bookkeeping Business Accelerator, you can find all of that. You can find joining the Bookkeeping Business Accelerator on the Ambitious Bookkeeper website. Just go to ambitiousbookkeeper.com/BBA. If you are interested in upgrading to VIP or joining VIP, email us at support@ambitiousbookkeeper.com and we will send you the links. All right. Thank you all for submitting such wonderful questions today, and Happy New Year. I wish you all the success for 1099 season and beyond. Hope to see you on our next live Q&A, same time, same place, the third Thursday.